two last questions that we'll take hopefully a little bit of time with. But I would say if there's one theme that I see that keeps coming through again and again in your writing is the danger of being co-opted or domesticated. And so let me ask, first question I want to ask is, how do we, I mean, here we are, a lot of people in this room have given their life to Christian education, and a lot of them have given themselves to the work of a local church congregation. And obviously, the danger of being co-opted and domesticated is as great in those two areas of work as anything.
Yeah.
And so how do you encourage us to continue on so that we do not become co-opted?
Well, I think that's one of the really great questions before the church, and I don't know that I know the answer. I think that it requires great self-knowledge and self-awareness. I think it requires having companions who are knowing and honest. And I think it matters greatly to stay in touch with the great Christian tradition of apostles and martyrs and saints, that we keep in front of us these extraordinary people who believed the gospel better than most of us are able to do. I don't know how a pastor manages that, but I think it's really important that we not be overly fatigued. And I know pastors live at the edge of fatigue all the time, but when we are fatigued, we are much more vulnerable to those kinds of seductions, because we can't act with great intentionality when we are pooped. And I think it requires great intentionality to live in a measured kind of way that doesn't just kind of ease off into accommodation. But I don't really know the answer to that. I think it's so difficult. And I think it's more difficult for a pastor in a local congregation than any place I can imagine. I have lived a very sheltered life compared to that. And I just think it's so tough.
Another area that you have you've spoken of and where we've domesticated or sanitized is with regard to lament in the church. And I was thinking about I think I can only think of one occasion where I have genuinely experienced honest, deep, communal lament in a worship service. And it was in South Bend, Indiana, when we gathered on a Sunday, the Sunday before Christmas, on a cold, wintry day when we came together when there had been a murder-suicide in our church, where a woman had killed her husband and then killed herself. Yep. And her children had found her bled out on the snow. Mm. And so there was nothing else we could do.
Yep.
And one of the things you say is that we have robbed ourselves by not allowing ourselves honest to lament. So what are some of the things you think we've lost in not being able to lament honestly in church?
Well, on the assumption that there is great pain among us, not simply because of personal crises, but there is great social pain among us that this isn't working. To the extent that we do not lament it, we swallow it, and it becomes destructive in other ways, because it will out toward the neighbor or toward ourselves, and we are robbed of energy by covering over our pain. See, I think Freud's great insight that he rediscovered as a Jew, is that pain expressed and heard turns to energy. Pain not expressed and not heard turns to violence. And I think in our society, women get together and do their pain, and blacks get together and do their pain. Everybody gets together to do their pain except white males. And they turn up on church governing bodies. So I think...
my 16-year-old told me over lunch a couple weeks ago, I shared something, and he said, "Dad, vulnerability is not cool."
It's certainly not for kids, is it?
Yeah.
Or for guys. But vulnerability is the door to transformation and emancipation. And it is the only door. What I think is mind-boggling is that ancient Israel knew that. So I don't know how it is in your churches, but I know that people come to church and they're so tired out and spent that they want to be revived with good news. But it's a false revival if the stuff underneath has not been given and received. So we kind of perpetuate the paralysis, I think, by doing that. I think it's very hard in our culture to do any public form of lament except for a quite visible acute crisis. But I think that the pastoral reality in our society is a reality of loss. I think we've lost the world we valued. We've lost our control. We've lost our economic advantage. We've lost everything. And not to be able to process that loss, I think, just generates all kinds of anger, which is destructive. And I think that the church is the only venue in which that loss can be in some way processed. I don't know how it is in your church tradition, but in my church tradition, we just pretend that those lament psalms are not there. The only one we can't avoid is 22 because Jesus said it. But we'll just leave that to him. We don't have any experience of God forsaking us, so to speak.
We're grateful to have you here, and more, we're grateful for your service to the church. We thank you.
Thank you.
Walter Brueggemann.